Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the KZ PR3. This is the latest in a long line of planar drivers that KZ has launched over the last year and a few months. It was again surrounded with some enthusiasm about being the best of the planars that they've done up to now, and so on and so forth. And I have to say that when I did get my first one, I was excited. I was curious to see what they had done, and why. Well, because the PR1 Pro for me was a very good planar. It was fine. I then actually played around with some of the other models that they had, the PR1, the HiFi and the Balanced, and also did some retuning of those models and so on. But anyway, I actually found that the KZ Planars were not bad, or were actually pretty decent, and considering the price that they had, why not? Let's put it that way. So I got the KZ PR1, the KZ PR3, and well, the first set that I got, I have to admit that I wasn't impressed. I was not impressed at all. Way too much extension past the pin gain, and it was just not a good set to listen to. Fine, fair enough, granted. Everyone has got their own different likings of sound and the way the sound should be, but this was way too much. I mean, if in the past KZ had been criticized for being overly bright and overly energetic in the upper registers, then this one then definitely took the prize for the winner. Why? Because the bass was on the level of the PR2 by HBB, while the treble was on the level of even more so than the balanced version. And I wasn't impressed. I have to say I wasn't impressed. Anyway, I subsequently bought another two sets. The second set, which is the one I'm holding here, this one now, yes, does have a graph that is reminiscent of what KZ provided as the graph for the set. And the third one, we're not even going to talk about that, because the third one is a total mess. The third one, I've even opened it up and everything. That's how bad it was. So all of this to say what? That there seems to be definitely some issue with the quality control of the PR3. Definitely. I mean, 3 sets, 3 different results. If you are lucky to get the set, which is like the one I have in my hands, then yes, then I can say that you will be probably satisfied with the caveats that are involved with what I'm about to say. But if you get one of the other 2 sets that I got, then you're not going to be impressed. I can guarantee you that much. Anyway, before I carry on talking a little bit more in detail, let me just take you through a quick rundown of all the planars, and so that you can see that when I'm talking with full knowledge, that I've had all and I've tried all of them. It started out initially with the CCA PLA13, okay, this set over here. Then subsequently they launched the PR1, okay, which is this set over here, in 2 versions, what they call the HiFi version and the balanced version. And the difference between the two of them is one has a very high bass output with a more modest, let's say, mids, upper mids and treble, and the other one is exactly the opposite. It's got a more moderate bass with a very prominent mids, upper mids and treble. Those models were then joined by the PR1 Pro, which was basically taking the best of the 2 previous PR1 models and merging them into one. So getting the moderate bass of the one set with the moderate extension in the mids, upper mids and treble of the other, and marrying it into one set. That was then followed by the PR2, which was a collaboration with HBB, which started having some issues. Why? Because the first sets, which are the ones, is this one here, which have that black felt on the actual driver are the best ones. If you subsequently got the follow-up set to that, which is this one here, okay, we just got no felt. If you look carefully, no felt, okay, no felt. These sets were a mess. So if you got this original one, fantastic. The set is actually not bad. And now again with the PR3, we seem to be having some issues. With the PR1 Pro, which I've got 3 sets of, and the other PR1s, no issues with that. With the PLA as well, no issues with that. I've got multiple sets. I tried them all out, and the consistency across the board was pretty decent. But with the PR3, that consistency seems to have gone down the wrong road there. Anyway, talking a little bit more about the PR3 in detail. In terms of the shell, it's basically the same thing that they've used before. What they've changed is the faceplate, and what is the differentiating factor. It's got these 3 screws or bolts or nuts or whatever you want to call them, but they do nothing. The shell actually opens up quite nicely, quite easily, and this is not an open back. This is totally sealed. Okay, there's no venting going on here. All right, it fits nicely. It will be very much tip dependent. KZ recommends the foams, and I'm going to say that yes, if you are very treble sensitive, maybe perhaps choose the foams. But my rec is either using these KB Ear 07s in the medium sized or the large size, and try and insert the IM as deep as you possibly can. If you do that, if you insert it really deep, then chances are that you'll be able to get an interesting sound, a pretty interesting sound, and considering its price, which is about $50, worthwhile buying if you are able to, guarantee that you get the set that sounds like this one, and that you are able to actually introduce it nice and deep into your ears. If you have any one of the previous models, that's something that's easy to find out straight away. You just try these tips that I just suggested on the other ones and see if you can insert it nice and deep. The other issue here, or the main thing here, is how will you know if you actually have the set that is the good one or the one that has the not so good tuning? Well, my answer to that is very simple. You don't. And I wish I could give you a way of previously knowing what you're going to get, but you don't. I hope that KZ will sort this matter out, and that only these sets, which are the ones that have the tuning which is reminiscent to what they've published, are the ones that are available, and not the other 2 that I got, which are absolute, well, I guess at the end of the day, it's ultimately my fault because I got them straight away as they were released. So talking a little bit more in detail about the actual sound of the PR3. Well, simple. They've basically taken the formula of the PR2, so it's got that more subdued bass in the sense that it's sub-bass focused with a not prominent mid-bass, so it loses a little bit of thump, which is, for example, something that the PR1 had a little bit more mid-bass, and that having that a little bit more mid-bass compensated then for the extension up top by maybe being a little bit excessive. So it's got that modest mid-bass, and then it's got a very abrupt pinna, which peaks just over 2K roughly, and then it gradually decreases. That abrupt pinna can make things a little bit forward, and yes, if on the one hand it does help bring out a lot of energy, a lot of detail, a lot of enthusiasm in terms of resolution and so on to the music reproduction, it can be a little bit on the fatiguing side if you're not careful, or if you're not able to get a decent fit with it. And by careful I mean if you don't choose your source carefully. The extension then, in terms of the upper mids and the treble, it's prominent. There's loads of extension, there's loads of energy there, but it's an extension that's been better done than on the PR2. So And when I show you the graphs, you'll see what I mean. So the area there between then, let's say 3 and 5, 6K is less prominent than on the PR2. And what that means is the PR2, even on this, this initial series, it could get a little bit harsh, a little bit sibilant at times. This one, I didn't find that to happen. Although, yes, if you push the volume, then I wouldn't really say sibilance, but there's a lot of energy in the upper registers, a lot of energy in the upper frequencies. You know, the upper mids and treble are very energetic. And then, you know, that will ultimately lead to fatigue. One thing is for sure, like I said in the beginning, this is not a set for those that like the more, let's say, latest tendency of planars, which is a sound which is more relaxed, more following somehow a DD style kind of tonality. No, this is a sound which is going to be appreciated by people which are treble heads, which love treble. That this will definitely satisfy those people. And for those as well that are detail freaks, that just want the last twinkly and sparkly, if that is what is your thing, then this definitely does that and does it very well. Technically, again, very proficient in terms of its soundstage. It's big, you know, it's got a nice big soundstage, loads of imaging capability, lots of resolution. So in terms of being an IM, it maybe can be used for gaming. I think that this, yes, does have the characteristics which are necessary: good soundstage, good imaging, good resolution. So definitely you'll be able to use this as a gaming IM for sure. Detail retrieval goes without saying, very, very good. The issue with all of that ability and the technicalities is ultimately that it is somewhat excessively pushed. So although it's very nice at lower volumes, and at low volumes it makes the PR3 actually quite engaging and very satisfying, when you start pushing the volume, things kind of lose a little bit their composure. And so ultimately, again, it will lead to a certain amount of fatigue if you're not careful. Obviously, if you're not a high volume listener, then it will be fine. It will please you. In terms of it being easy to drive or not, I disagree with what I heard some reviewers saying. This at the same volume setting on my NX7 here, and all I did was just swap the three of them. This one was actually the one that was playing the lowest in terms of overall volume. The PR1 was playing the loudest, then the KZ, the PR2 just below that, and this was definitely the last one, the one that was playing the least. I definitely had to turn the volume knob a little bit more to get the same sort of volume I was getting from those two, which, you know, again, coupled to the fact that it's a relatively low impedance, I mean 15 ohms if I'm not mistaken, and has the sensitivity which is about the same, kind of surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. But anyway, just to recap things very quickly. In terms of the bass, it's got a good quality bass, just lacks a little bit of mid bass. Mids, upper mids, and treble are well executed, if perhaps just a little bit overly energetic sometimes, which can lead to the sound being somewhat colored, somewhat artificial. Okay, and ultimately the timbre and the tonality, which is a very subjective thing, will be affected by it. I personally feel that the timbre and the tonality are not something which the PR3 can be praised for. Definitely not. However, on the same token, soundstage, imaging, resolution, yes, you can praise the PR3 on that. It does it very well. More so at lower and mid volumes than at high volumes, where all that energy and the way that it scales becomes a little bit excessive and just leads to fatigue. It's not that it's harsh or aggressive or no, I wouldn't go that far. It's just too energetic and you just get tired of it. That's it. Okay. So there you have it. Compared then to the two previous main ones from KZ, the PR2 and the PR1 Pro. Compared to the PR2, I think it's a better IM overall. They've got basically the same bass, but then the execution of the mids and the treble, upper mids and treble is better here than on here. Definitely, this one is got it loses out too much in the upper registers, so it shuts it down a little bit more. It got more that kind of DD vibe, which is what we see now in some of the IEMs, which are planars as well. While this one, yes, you got that planar vibe going there quite nicely. The only problem with either one of them really is, are you getting your first churn? which is most unlikely, which is the better one, or are you, and which of the ones are you getting here in terms of the PR3? That's the issue that I see here. But overall, and considering the one that is available, the PR2, and let's say that you do get a good one here, the PR3 is better than the PR2. Compared to the PR1, I don't think it's better than the PR1. The PR1 for me still stands as the best planar that they have done up to now. The mid bass that it has is sufficient to counteract any excessive energy that might occur in the upper registers above 5K. So, the upper mids and treble, when they get too overly excited, or past 10K when there's a lot of energy, the mid bass does a good job of counteracting that and keeping things more or less in tabs. Yes, ultimately, if you really crank it up, it will become also excessive. But I found that I was able to listen to the PR1 Pro for longer period of times than the PR3. The PR3 ultimately led to fatigue. And on top of that, while on the PR1 Pro, be it the foam tips or be it the silicone tips, the result in the sound was more or less the same and wasn't really an issue. With the PR3, there is a difference in using the foams and using the silicones. And there is a difference, especially in the silicones, when you are able to insert it more deep or less deep. The way to go, in my opinion, is silicone and deep insertion. That's the way I think it's the best solution here for the PR3. Going with the foam, yes, does have the effect of keeping the mids and upper mids and treble, especially the upper mids and treble in tabs, so controlled, but it also gives a sensation that the bass becomes a little bit more soft, a little bit more thinner somehow. So I think silicone is the way to go here. Compared then very briefly with the other, or with not the other, but with some of the other IEMs in terms of planar. The one IEM that you could say is kind of very reminiscent of the PR3 is the Stellaris. And the Stellaris wasn't successful precisely because of the way that it was tuned. It was very, very limited in the genres that it would do very well and the people that would accept it. And this, the PR3, and I'm again going to say, assuming that you get the good sounding set, I think is a set which is very limited to a specific genre of music and a specific group of people. So it's not a versatile set. Okay, so I guess they both kind of stand on the same footing. Compared to the S12 Pro, the Electro S12 Pro, and I've got the S15, but I'm just going to compare it to the S12 Pro. No contest. I mean, there's absolutely no contest possible. The same thing applies to the HiDis, the MP145. Unquestionably one of the better, if not the best, planar currently available. Compared to the Keyfine, fair enough, you could argue both of these are IMs which are above $100, so significantly more expensive, but they're worth it. Compared here to the RTT10, okay, which is around $70, and the Keyfine Klanar, which is about $112, $115. Again, these two are superior IMs to the PR3. Why do I say they are superior? Well, because what they do lose maybe in that planar overall technicality capability that the PR3 has, which is huge soundstage and so on and so forth. Yes, it is slightly smaller here, slightly less efficient in terms of imaging. The good thing that either one of these two IMs has is it might be less, but it's more realistic, it's more true, it's not pushed, it's not excessively overdone. Over here, it seems like they tried really hard to obtain a sound which, in my opinion, was almost there. If they had just tamed it down slightly across the whole board, it would have been perfect. And they tried so hard that ultimately the result was an IM that is going to be appreciated by a very limited group of people, in my opinion. So that's the RTTI, the T10, the Keyfine Klanar, the MP145, the S12, the Stellaris, and finally here, one of my favorite planars, which is the P1 Max. I mean, I still feel that this IM really did not get any love, and it's a bloodbath, honestly. For me, in my opinion, it's a bloodbath. This walks all over the PR3. No, the only area where maybe the PR3 is slightly ahead of the P1 is in terms of, at lower volumes, its technicalities being a little bit more alive, a little bit more vivid. So you have a little bit bigger soundstage and so, That's it. Now, in terms of scaling, no comparison possible. This scales like a boss. This has got timbre and tonality and an engagement which that doesn't even come close to matching. Okay, so no comparison. So ultimately, what is my verdict here on the PR3? Well, for the $50, and assuming that you do get the the decent one, the one that's properly tuned, I would say it's worthwhile getting. If you haven't tried any planar and you want to try something different and your budget doesn't allow you to go above that, I would definitely say go for this over the PR2. Definitely, unquestionably, it's a better IM than the PR2. Compared then to marginally more expensive IMs that you have, so this is now 50, you can get this for 99. For me, it's a no-brainer choice, P1 Max. Compared to the RTT10, again, it's a no-brainer choice, RTT10. So it might be maybe slightly competitive with its PR2 brother, but not with the PR1. And I would even go as far as saying not even with the balanced or the stock PR1. Not even with those it is as competitive. Because if those IMs were criticized for being excessively bright and overly energetic, then honestly, if you are unlucky to get a PR3, which is the first one that I got, which is the one that's got extension all the way from here to infinity, this thing is gonna murder your ears. Period. Okay. Anyway, guys, let me show you now the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Hi guys, and welcome now to the graph section for the KZ PR3. Let me just remove some of these graphs here first. Anyway, let me just show you a little bit quickly the evolution of the sets. I'm not going to show you the PLA because it's not even available anymore. But anyway, this here is the PR1 in its balanced version, which is in the HiFi version. So this is the PR1 HiFi version, which is the set which was the full silver set. Okay. And this sounded nice. It had a good sound, but it was criticized for this being overly energetic and sounding too metallic, and ultimately everything kind of still fit within more or less the 10 dB window if you look carefully, but it was criticized and that was it. So anyway, they at the same time launched what they called the balanced version, which was the shell, which is the more common shell. I've normalized everything at 500 Hertz, by the way. And this had slightly less energy up top, coupled with more bass. It kind of ultimately gave a more, as they mentioned, balanced sound, fine, but was too bass heavy. The bass was just a little bit too much. So they launched the PR1 Pro. And the PR1 Pro, if you just look carefully, they've taken the bass of the HiFi and gone for the mids, upper mids, and treble profile of the balanced. So if I take away here quickly the balanced, okay, you see you got that less energy across the board in the mids, upper mids, and treble, especially the upper mids and treble, all right? And the bass, okay, which is exactly the same as the HiFi version. Anyway, I'm going to leave that one there only. Okay. This set was then, oops, my apologies. This set was then joined a couple of months after that with the set that came from HBB, which is number 12 exactly. Okay, there we go. And actually, let me just change the color here to black so we can notice it better. And what they did, again, normalized 500 Hertz, is they took away a little energy here, all right, from the mid bass, but they also kind of, it's not the initial pin again, which the issue is they gave it more energy here than what actually is noticeable. I guess you could also attribute that to the fact that you've lost some mid bass, so you notice more the area, but the area between 3 and 5, 6K is more prominent, and then it rolls off to give it, well, to take away this extension that the PR1 Pro had, but to give it more of a DD overall sense. And look, ultimately the series 1 PR2 were not bad sounding. They actually were pretty decent sounding. Initially I even went as far as saying that maybe it could be the better one between the PR1 Pro and the PR2 would be the better one. But subsequently I listened more carefully with a little bit more, and I came to the conclusion that my initial impression of the PR1 being still the best one, was the case. The PR1 Pro is still the best planar IM up to this point here, where the PR2 has now been launched. When the PR2, the subsequent version, came out without the felt, that just went completely haywire, and that it completely messed up this whole area even more. It even became brighter. Okay, and then we now get the PR3. Let me just take away the PR1. The first PR3 I got was this, which when I compare it here, when I put here quickly now the PR2, you can see what I was saying earlier. Same sort of bass, but then this extension is just ridiculous. And for you to see just how much extension it's got, I'll just quickly compare it with the PR1 Pro. Okay, PR1 Pro, let me make it in green so it stands out. There we go. Okay, and let's show it now. PR1 Pro. It's even got more extension than the PR1 Pro, coupled to the fact that it also doesn't have the same sort of mid bass. So this here, instead of having this energy here, which kind of helps camouflage and tame down that excessive energy that we have up top, is not present. So it's ridiculous. I mean, if the PR1 Pro it was criticized for being overly energetic, overly bright, too much, too fake, then what is the PR3 then? Luckily, because I am the way I am, I said to myself, no, something here cannot be right. Let me see if this is the case. I got another set which graphed this way, and that set, let's forget it. The set is, let's even forget. That set is actually over here. Okay, it's over here. Let me try it one more time, and I got a third set. And that third set, where is it? There we go, is this one here, which now finally we get a graph which is kind of reminiscent of what KZ did announce for it, as it being that it looks like the graph that they talk about. So let me take away that first one. So this looks like the way that they're talking about. Now, depending on the tips, as I mentioned, if you use, let me put here number 14. So if you use in the foams, which they supply, this is the graph. If you use a silicone, this is what you get. You get a little extra energy here. But somehow, for some reason which I can't really explain, this extra energy that it gains here actually helps tighten up the bass. And the bass just sounds snappier. It just sounds more engaging. We already know that it doesn't have much mid bass, but with the silicone tips, in my opinion, it is probably the better option, as long as you are not treble sensitive. If you are treble sensitive, then definitely the foam tips. Okay, so silicone, foam tips. Compare then to, let's just leave the silicones, let's leave the silicones. Compare them to the PR2, and again you can see very clearly what I was mentioning. They are very similar, same sort of bass, same sort of pinna gain, peaking, same thing. The difference here between the two of them is this area here, which on the PR2 is noticeable that is there, and somehow the bass just doesn't sound as it could be just a psychoacoustic effect, but that's how I perceive it. It just doesn't sound as good overall as the PR3. The PR3 does edge out the PR2 in terms of sound. That's it. Compared to the PR1 Pro, which is for me still the best IM that they've let me just change the color of the PR3 to red. There we go. Okay, and let's put the PR1 Pro in blue so it stands out again. In blue, there we go, blue, that's it. Okay, so it's noticeable straight away that the PR1 Pro has got more mid bass, which is welcomed. It's actually needed. And then it kind of has a very similar, let me just take away quickly the PR2. You can see that this area here between 2 and, you could say 2 and 7, 8K, it's kind of similar to each other. But then it's got the PR1 Pro, it's got way more extension past 10K. I don't feel this extension to be hindering the performance in any way. Why? Because I've got this mid-bass bump here which helps out. So overall, for me, in my opinion, in my books, my music, I still feel the PR1 Pro is the best planar that they've done. I am sure, as KZ is always the known for that, I'm sure that the PR3 will definitely be subjected to an improvement. It needs it, and if that improvement is just giving it a little bit more mid-bass, that would be very welcomed. Why not? And I wouldn't even really touch so much this area here because it's not so okay, fair enough. We have 70s, about 10 dBs of gain there on the P. I would just say a little bit extra mid-bass, and I think then it would be fine. Just now, for the sake of curiosity, I played around with them, with the PR1, the original ones, the balanced. I played around and retuned them, and I came up with these two tunings, which I think will be interesting to share with you guys. So if we recall the PR1 balanced, let me just quickly put it up so you guys can see the difference that I'm talking about. So the PR1 balanced is this graph here. Okay, that's the PR1. And then this is what I was able to do to it once I retuned it. I was able to get this, this is with the phone tip, and this one is with, both of them are with phone tips. The bass is way more controlled, as you can see. We're talking about a gain on the bass which is 69, 9 dBs. The same thing as well for the mids, upper mids, and treble. Just overall, everything sits within a slightly tighter window. This mid-bass bump here is nice and welcomed. It just sounds very nice. It's a mod that honestly I would even be in the position to tell KZ what I did so that they could do it, because this is how I think it could sound, because it in this format it sounds really nice. And just for you guys to see how it is compared to the PR1 Pro, let me just change the color here to red so it stands out. This is my PR1 modified compared to the PR1 Pro. Normalized at 500 Hz, bass on the PR1 Pro is just slightly more, and the PR1 is just a little bit more jaggedy. Okay, it's also got lots of extension up there. But my modified PR1 balanced, which I mean, it's a little bit of an awkward way to call it, it sounds better. It sounds much better. Hell, they could have made the PR3 sound like this, and I think it would have been a success. Anyway, guys, this is enough ranting and rambling. You guys now must decide what you want to do. If you want to take the risk and get the PR3, or if you just want to leave it and not worry about it. I think I would probably leave it. They'll definitely be coming out with something that's improved. I know that in this particular set they've used some sort of an electronic network to try and also get this sort of curve here, like they've done as well on their single DDs. It needs to be refined. This is the first version of that implementation, so I'm sure that now with some fine tuning it will be definitely improved. All right. Anyway, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask me, and I'll do my best to answer. You take care now. Bye bye.